here from City Fan TV, and as you can see, I'm joined today by Colin Savage at Press Rich Blue on Twitter. How you doing, Colin?
I'm doing great, thanks, Ray. How are you?
You're looking good. I'm all right, mate. I'm all right. Very good indeed. In France at the moment. I'm going to show you that with my wife's paintings. Oh, she's being asked quite a lot to be commissioned.
I'm sure.
I don't know what she's doing with me. She's too talented for me, isn't she? I thought I'd say that before somebody else does. We're here to talk Lionel Messi, and not looking at the fact, is he going to come to us? Is he ever going to leave Barca? Things like that. But because I've got Colin, and obviously Colin is a finance expert, he's our go-to man on FFP and anything finance related. We want to look at whether City can afford to get Messi, because he ain't cheap, especially under these problems we're having in the COVID times. There's a bit less money coming into the pot. And obviously we have to look at FFP. And we're just trying to see if Man City could finance this deal, whether they've already got a deal on the table. I think I've talked to Colin about this in the past, just waiting to press the button and go. And just to see, how can we structure a deal to buy Messi? And is it easy? Is it difficult? Or is it manageable? So how should we start this, Colin? Should we start by looking at potentially how much it would cost us in terms of if there is a transfer fee and if there's wages, and then looking at how we can finance that?
Well, the simple answer, we don't know. I mean, there's talk about a release clause of 700 million euros. There's also talk he can walk away for nothing. But it's not clear either whether he can walk away this season now for nothing, or it's next season. Now, if it's next season, it'll be just 34. But I think when we're talking about when we can afford it, there's kind of two separate things there. One is, have we got the cash? And if necessary, I'm sure we could get the cash from Sheikh Mansour. But the big problem is, of course, as you mentioned, financial fair play. So how could we afford it from a financial fair play point of view? And I think you've got to go back, and Joe, we talked about this before, is how you actually account for transfers. Because people talk about net spend, but net spend is a very poor way of measuring transfers. We had the meeting, was it just last year, with Kieran Maguire, and we agreed net spend is about the worst way you can manage these things or compare these things. And funny enough, I was listening to Kieran just yesterday on the podcast, and he was talking about what I talk about, the total cost of ownership, which is basically wages plus something called amortization. And I'm sure most people know this, but just to remind you, if you buy a player, you spend 100 million on a 5-year contract, that contract goes through at 20 million a year in the accounts. So it's much more affordable than putting it through as 100 million. And then, of course, there's the wages on top. So if you buy a player for 100 million on a 5-year contract and you pay him 10 million a year, you're looking at a 30 million hit to the accounts.
And that's all FFP is interested in, isn't it, Colin? That's
all FFP is interested in. And you've also got to remember, you can offset that because you sell players. When you sell players and you take a profit on them, that goes in the account straight away. So if, for example, if we were to sell someone like Eric Garcia, pretty well homegrown, got 30 million for him, that's a 30 million profit in one single year. So if you've got a player coming in and it's costing you 30 million in year one, and then through years 2 to 5, you're offsetting that straight away with a 30 million profit. And as we said before when we were talking, City actually operationally make a small loss, about a £10 million loss the last couple of years. But they offset that by making a profit on transfers. And people are talking about, none of the kids breaking through and we're selling kids, but that's what makes the profit. If you bought someone for nothing, even if you sell them for Aaron Moy for 10 million, that's 10 million on the bottom line. So it's important to remember how transfers are accounted for. Now, obviously, there's a point beyond, if we're talking about, if we have to pay 700 million euros for Messi, I don't think we're doing it on a 5-year contract, to be honest, because he's probably his last contract. So, you do it on a 3-year contract, you're talking about over 200 million a season. No, you can forget that. That's nonsense. But if he walks on a free, that's not an issue. But let's suppose Barcelona take a the view that they'd rather get something for him now, as we are doing perhaps with Eric Garcia, than losing for nothing next summer. We don't know what the terms of his contract are. They might say take 150 million because they need the money. They're heavily in debt. They borrow more money. They want to redo the stadium. Let's say they take 150 million, 200 million for him. Maybe we'll put him on a 4-year contract, 50 million a year, euro. 50 million, maybe euros a year, 45 million pounds a year amortization. Now that's a big hit. We're making 20 million pound profit, 45 million pounds amortization on the bottom line is a big hit. So how do you offset that? Well, one is you sell players. So as we say, Eric Garcia, Angelina, we're talking about, get 50 million for them. You've covered that in the first year. But someone like Messi, there's another way to do it. And there's not many players you could do this with. There's Messi, there's Ronaldo, potentially there's Neymar, maybe Mbappe, but the top rank of players are Messi and Ronaldo. And people laugh when people talk about Paul Pogba. United will make the transfer fee back in shirts. Well, they won't, because basically the way shirt sales work is you get money up front and you get a small percentage of the shirt sales up to a certain amount. So and you may be only selling 2-3 million shirts. Okay, so you might make some money on it, but with someone like Messi or Ronaldo, where you make the money is commercial. You will get, people will pay good money to have Messi associated with them. And you think of our existing sponsors, Puma, imagine how many shirts they would sell, and it's money to them, not to City. You look at Etihad, what would it be worth for Etihad to have Messi as the face of their advertising? And they will pay for that. All right, they're paying now, they will pay more. Let me give you an example. So, funny enough, I know you're in France now. Just after we'd been beaten by Wigan in the cup final, 2013, a contact in France told me that he'd been interviewing the PSG president, Nasser Al-Khelaifi. And he'd asked him about PSG were going through their big spending, still are big spending, but it was the start. And he asked him, is Messi achievable? And apparently Al-Khelaifi laughed and said, well, we'd love Messi, but City have got first dibs on him. Did a bit of digging, and from what I was told, we had got an agreement that we could have first refusal if he ever left Barcelona, which looked completely unlikely at that point. But knowing that, we put together a deal. And the nature of that deal was our kit manufacturer then was Nike, of course. Etihad were on the shirts, and they, as I believe it, they immediately agreed to double their sponsorships. I mean, Nike weren't paying us that much anyway. Getting Messi would have been phenomenal. So they agreed to double their sponsorships, and I think that would have worked out to something like £25 million a year extra. And you multiply that by 5, the 5-year contract, you're talking about covering 125 million fee, which I think what we were talking about at the time. Something around that. So fees covered because you've got extra sponsorship. So you've got 25 million amortization as an expense, but you've got 25 million additional income to offset that. So basically, it's a free transfer. In that sense. So then is his wages. I don't know what. I did hear at the time his base salary was 250k a week. So we're talking about 12.5 million a year. That's base salary. Talk about this in a minute. Again, you get three sponsors lined up for 5 million a year. You pay that. So effectively, Messi is a player you could potentially get effectively financially on a free transfer. Even if you're paying his wages, you're paying a fee, you get increased commercial revenue because he's Messi. And I say there was only him and Ronaldo, maybe Neymar, who could command that sort of deal. Now there's talk that Messi's on €1 million a week salary. So obviously we're talking about closer to 45 million a year, which is not a trivial sum, bit different to 12.5 million a year. But if I understand it correctly, and I may be wrong on this, but I'm comparing him to Wayne Rooney. I mean, comparing Messi to Rooney, it's like comparing, clapped out Ford Fiesta to a Rolls Royce. But perhaps that's a bit cruel to Rooney. But Rooney was in the Premier League for Manchester United a figure that commanded a certain amount of commercial attention, if you like. And if you remember, there are all these stories about Rooney's on 350k a week. Now, I'd seen an article. I know that Rooney was actually, his salary that United were paying was about 180k. So where was this? United hadn't doubled his salary. What United did was they agreed with him or his agent and negotiated a deal whereby if United got a big commercial deal, Rooney would be the face of that deal because obviously he's a very desirable character from a commercial point of view. And he would get, not necessarily from a, have a few pints type of view, but he would get, say, half of that money. So if a sponsor paid him 5 million a year, they said, Rooney's the face of our campaign, Rooney gets 2.5 million quid. And that's where his salary package, that's 350k salary package came from. Now, you've got to assume that Messi's on a very similar deal. So the question is, how much are Barca actually paying him dead money out of their own revenue, and how much is being paid out of commercial deals that he is attracting? Because seem to remember he was the face of Turkish Airlines at one point. They had a big campaign. There's probably other people. Command a massive fee. You've got to assume that that's part of the deal, that he's getting a cut of those deals. So the question is, then he presumably brings those deals with him. I don't know, in some way, but the same thing happens. So the question is, how much is he actually getting that's what you might call dead money?
Yeah.
So money that's coming out of our pocket, City's pocket, not being covered by a commercial deal. Because obviously if it's been covered by a commercial deal, we don't have to worry about it. Now we're getting the money in, we're giving half of it to him. So let's say it's 300k, if we're talking, it was 250k, I believe, in 2013. Let's say it's doubled 500k. I don't know. We're talking about 25 million a year. How many sponsors could you attract for that? Could you, if you can get those 5 million a year sponsors, then you're actually paying 10 million a year out of our own pocket, 200k a week.
Yeah.
That's what we pay our players at the moment.
Yeah. I've seen some numbers where he's on about 60 million quid a year or more, which is, ridiculous.
We couldn't pay that dead money, even if we got sponsors in. But I would be pretty certain that a lot of that 60 million, at least half of it, maybe 40 million, is commercial money, not wages as such.
Yeah, and we do the same at City. If we needed that much, we'd have to do.
But Messi is a player who attracts that sort of financial reward, financial gain. You will, put Messi as the face of Etihad, face of Hayes, and you think what you could command for that. So potentially, we don't know the numbers involved as yet. Potentially, Messi could cost us no more than 20 million.
Yeah,
effectively on the bottom line. And don't forget, we've said you're selling players. You're selling Garcia. We're selling Angelino. We might be talking about, we might be selling Zinchenko. There'll be kids out the academy we're selling for 5-8 million. You sell 2 or 3 of those, you've paid that money.
Yeah, absolutely. I always get these surveys from City asking me which of these companies are City sponsors. There must be about, and you've got a list there, and there are so many sponsors that you've never heard of. And there must be about 40 or 50 sponsors now sponsoring City.
And we've got about 30 last time I checked, could be more than that.
It just feels like there's a heck of a lot. And it's just, and some of them are paying different amounts. Someone like Nexen Tires, I think they're paying up to 10 million, and Nissan as well. And it's just really, can you imagine Nissan having Messi in their adverts, Nexen Tires?
If they're paying 10 million a year, they're paying 20 million a year.
Yeah, that's it.
With Messi.
If City go to Nissan and say, look, you get Messi in 3 adverts, can we have an extra 5 million a year? I think Nissan would fall over themselves.
Well, and we're doing this through CFG, of course. Imagine you're giving him global. With CFG, you've got global exposure.
Yeah.
And well, you have in the Premier League anyway, but we've got the whole CFG network. Got Abu Dhabi, Sheikh Mansour behind us, and I've made the case. So we don't know the numbers. But I've made the case that potentially, depending on the numbers, Messi, not only does he cost you nothing, you actually make money on him.
Yeah.
We might make 20 million in addition to everything we accessory. We might make 20 million on top of what it costs us because we get this extra commercial income. And there's only a couple of players can do that.
Yeah. I mean, it does sound absolutely amazing. And the reason we were having the chat was because I've seen outlets saying City are doing the numbers and part of it is me saying, but I've listened to Colin for the last so many years telling me that, what happened a few years ago and City were all ready to press the button. And I also believe a lot of the media outlets, they make up stories. For an untrained eye, that sounds like something that City could be doing. For someone who doesn't know about finances, someone who's coming from a different background, and it's just something you could easily say, and most people say, oh yeah, all right, it sounds reasonable. But you need to at least have some knowledge, which is why you're here, to say, look, it's not actually that difficult. And maybe City don't really need to do much because in contract terms with some of the sponsors, I'm sure for some of them, it will already be there. If we get category A players like Ronaldo, Messi, Mbappe, Neymar, you have to pay this extra amount of money.
Yeah, it may well be. And I say it was 2013 when City really had everything together. So things have changed since then. So yeah, I can understand that they may be going back to Etihad again. They may be going to Prima this time. They may be going to Nissan, Nexen, Hayes, all our key sponsors, and potentially new ones.
Yeah.
Because CFG, I forgot City. There's a subsidiary company, City Marketing Service, or something like that. I can't remember what it's called. CFS, CF, whatever. But they're potentially talking to people and say, if what you're prepared to pay us.
Yeah.
So they may well be running the numbers again, but the process, they know the process they're going through.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fantastic as always, Colin. It's fantastic chatting with you, and hopefully, maybe in the close season, if we've got the time, we'll look at some more financial elements around football. Just to see.
I've got to go because I'm watching Barcelona Airport on Flight Radar. I might
to see if it's coming. No, the thing is, I've got to say, it makes a change because every year, every summer, we're linked with Isco, and this year we haven't been linked with Isco, and at last, it feels there's a deal out there that's more realistic than the Isco deal.
Well, I can tell you, the Isco deal was only missing a signature. A contact I had was close to this deal, not from City's point of view, I might add, not a City contact, someone from the Spanish side. And he basically said, they were all sat in a room, and Isco wanted to come.
Yeah.
We had a personal deal, we'd agreed terms, and basically it was just a question of, well, here's the deal, sign on the dotted line. And someone came in and said, oh, we want 5 million extra.
Yeah.
As a commission, and we wouldn't pay that. And the same with Eden Hazard.
Yeah.
Again, the deal was done. People complain about City not backing Roberto Mancini, of course, when that happened. But City have an approach, and I know United have an approach to these things. I know it seems daft when they seem to be chuck money around like it's going out of fashion. But I've heard David Gill say, firsthand, we have a way of doing it. There are certain things we will not do. And there are certain things that City will not do. And if they've got a deal, they expect it to be stuck to. All right, they may. We lost Hazard, we lost Isco, but and we've seen it, haven't we? City will not. They didn't buy Maguire because they thought it was too expensive.
Yeah.
City have a way of doing business, and again, to make the point, we have to abide by financial fair play.
Absolutely.
So we're not going to throw money around. We could get all the cash we wanted. if we could do, if Messi cost us 700 million euros, we could get, presumably, Sheikh Mansour would front us the cash for that. We couldn't get it ourselves, but even if we could do it, even if we could make the kind of the numbers work, so that's probably not an issue. But yeah.
Well, FFP would do us totally over there. No, it's really good to chat with you, Colin, and fingers crossed we'll see you before the season starts and have another chat about finances with you then. Thanks a lot, Colin.
Yeah, take care, right?
Yes.
Bye.